There's a level of car tuning where the engine makes over 11,000 horsepower. But that's not even the craziest level on this list. The craziest one still has a license plate. Car tuning has 7 levels, and most people never get past the bottom 2, no matter what their exhaust sounds like at a stoplight. Level 1 is a car that just looks fast. Level 7 is a car that has technically beaten a Bugatti on a real runway, with a timer running and still isn't allowed to say so. Everything in between is where people fall in love with this hobby, or slowly go broke trying to keep up with it. And almost nobody actually knows where the line between those two things really sits. So let's climb the whole ladder one level at a time, and by the end, you'll know exactly where your own car actually stands, how far away the next level really is, and whether you actually want to go there once you see what it costs. Level 1. Stock plus a little bit of ego. This is wheels, this is lowering springs, this is a wrap and a set of exhaust tips, making a sound the engine underneath absolutely did not earn. Maybe a split or two, one that's really just there for photos, because at anything under grocery run speed, it isn't splitting a single molecule of air. Pop the hood, and the engine bay looks exactly like it did the day it left the factory floor. Walk all the way around this car, and every single thing you're looking at is cosmetic. Nothing mechanical has actually changed. Not one bolt, not one line of code, not one extra horsepower under the hood. It looks tuned. It isn't. And look, there's nothing wrong with level 1. Most people who own a modified car live right here, and that's perfectly fine. But it's worth being honest with yourself about which side of that line you're standing on, because a lot of people at this level sincerely believe they're already 1 or 2 levels higher than they are. And that gap, the one between looking fast and actually being fast, matters more than it seems right now. Hold on to it. It's going to flip completely inside out by the time we reach the top of this list. Level 2, Stage 1. This is the first level where real power shows up, and it comes from something you can't even see. A laptop plugged into a port under your dashboard, silently rewriting the car's own software. A proper Stage 1 remap can add anywhere from 10 to 30% more horsepower and torque with 0 new hardware bolted on. Same turbo, same intake, same exhaust, nothing. That gain isn't even close to the same for every car, and most people never clock why. A naturally aspirated engine might only pick up a handful of extra horsepower because there's simply not much left to give. Hand that same tune to a turbocharged engine, though, and it can add 50% or more, because turbo cars are basically built with spare capacity baked in from the factory, just waiting to get unlocked. Turns out the factory never let the engine use everything it actually had. That power was sitting there the whole time, held back on purpose, for warranty claims, for emissions testing, for whatever a distracted commuter in bad weather could safely handle without ever touching the brakes wrong. Stage 1 isn't really an upgrade in the way people think of upgrades, it's permission. The engine already knew how to make this power. Somebody just finally asked it nicely. And this is what gets people hooked immediately. It's reversible. Load the stock file back in, 10 minutes, and it's like it never happened. That's exactly why almost everyone who tunes a car starts right here, and why so few people stop here. Level 3, Stage 2. Now the remap finally gets some backup. A bigger intake, a proper exhaust, an upgraded intercooler to keep the charge air-cool under load, and the gains jump to 20, sometimes 40% over stock. On a turbo petrol car, this usually means a performance downpipe and a cold air intake. Diesel owners are looking at a completely different shopping list. DPF delete, EGR delete, on top of everything else. The car finally feels like a genuinely different animal, not just a slightly sharper version of the same one. But power has to go somewhere, and the factory clutch was never designed to handle it. So the moment you unlock this level, the clutch immediately becomes the new weakest link in the entire car. You fix the airflow problem, and you've just created a driveline problem you didn't even know you were signing up for. That's basically the entire hobby, summarized in one sentence. Solve one bottleneck and uncover the next one hiding right behind it. None of this is standardized either. One tuner's Stage 2 is another tuner's Stage 1 with an exhaust bolted on. The label matters a lot less than what's actually been done to the car. Level 4, Stage 3. This is a bigger, non-stock turbo, plus a fuel system built to keep up with it. Bigger injectors, a stronger pump, sometimes a whole new fuel rail from scratch. Done properly, this level can add 40% or more overstock, sometimes doubling the power the car left the factory with. The tuners who build these cars for a living will tell you straight up what this level really is. In their own words, the motorsport tune, rough idle at a stoplight, worse fuel economy. There's a real chance it won't pass an emissions test anymore, and depending where you live, That's not a small detail to gloss over. And it's not just the engine anymore. This much torque going through factory engine and gearbox mounts means the whole powertrain physically shifts under hard acceleration, robbing you of power before it even reaches the wheels. So now you're replacing mounts too, just to stop the engine from moving around inside its own bay. You've built something incredible on a closed track and something borderline miserable to live with in daily traffic. Congratulations, you've made a race car that still technically has cup holders. Level 5. The engine gets rebuilt from the inside out. Forged pistons, forged connecting rods, a standalone aftermarket computer that fully replaces the factory ECU, because the stock one was never designed to manage numbers like this. Some of these builds run on E85 or straight race fuel just to survive the cylinder pressure they're now under. Power lands somewhere between 600 and 1,000 plus horsepower, purely depending on how far someone's willing to take it and how much money they're willing to burn chasing it. At this point, ask yourself what's actually left from the factory. The badge on the back, maybe the door handles if you're lucky. Everything that actually makes the car move has already been replaced with something stronger, because the original parts simply weren't engineered for a world this extreme. Nobody ends up here by accident. This is the level people arrive at deliberately, usually because a number in their head, a quarter-mile time, a dyno figure, a bragging right at a local meet, was worth more to them than keeping a single original engine part. And once you're spending this kind of money on an engine, the next question becomes obvious. Why is the rest of the car still stock? Level 6. It stops being a car you drive to work. A basic 10-second drag car built properly with the chassis, transmission, and rear end fully sorted runs around $20,000, and that's before you've spent a dime on the engine itself. Move up into the sportsman classes, and that number climbs fast, because every part on the car has now been chosen for one job only. A fully turnkey pro stock car runs closer to $300,000. And at the very top of the entire sport, top fuel dragsters, 25 feet of chromoly and carbon fiber, weighing barely 2,300 pounds, run engines that make over 11,000 horsepower, burning nitromethane, covering 1,000 feet of pavement in under 4 seconds. And the outside changes just as much as what's under the hood. Real glass gets swapped for thin polycarbonate. Doors, hoods, and trunk lids get replaced with carbon fiber panels that weigh a fraction of the originals, and the interior gets gutted and rebuilt around a roll cage. Because at these speeds, a cage isn't decoration. It's the only thing between the driver and the wall, and it runs backwards from what you'd expect. These builds don't chase big wings the way a track car would. In a straight line, aero just means drag, so the goal is the opposite. Strip it down and let the engine do the rest. None of this is street legal. None of it is even trying to be. There's no license plate for something that generates force like that. Somewhere back around level 5, tuning left the category of car behind entirely and became something else. A machine built to do exactly one thing, as violently as physically possible for 4 seconds at a time. Level 7. The ones that technically shouldn't exist. This is the twist ending, and it's a real one. Some builders have taken actual street cars, plates, insurance, a working air conditioner, a glove box with the owner's manual still sitting in it, and pushed them to 2,500, even 2,700 horsepower. One tuned Lamborghini Gallardo out of a shop called Underground Racing reportedly sits around that 2,500 horsepower mark on a car that still drives to a grocery store. And you can see it, not just feel it. To put that much power down without the tires just spinning uselessly, these builds need widened fenders, sometimes 4 or 5 inches wider per side, wrapped around tires that look like they belong on a different car entirely. At real speed, a front splitter and a rear wing stop being decoration too. They're the only thing keeping a car planted to the ground instead of turning into an actual airplane. Then they've used that power to outrun the fastest hypercars a manufacturer has ever built. The Bugatti Chiron Supersport, built entirely on a factory line with a team of engineers and an unlimited budget, tops out around 304 miles an hour. One modified Ford GT, tuned by a single shop, hit 310 on a runway with a timer running. But here's the catch, and it's the whole point of this list. Officially, none of it counts. The record books for the fastest car in the world only recognize vehicles built by a manufacturer on a production line. A tuned build can beat a Bugatti in a straight line, on camera, timer confirmed, and still get left off the official list, because the rule book was never written with cars like this in mind. So go back to level 1. Remember that gap, the one between looking fast and actually being fast. At level 7, that exact gap flips completely inside out. Level 1 faked it. a splitter that never split any air, a wrap over a stock engine. Level 7 needs every inch of that wide body and every inch of that wing just to survive doing what it does. Now, you've got a car that can outdrive anything money can order brand new from a factory, and the only thing standing between it and the record books is a technicality nobody ever bothered to write around. That's the whole ladder. Stock to record breaker, a wrap job at the bottom, and a car that beat a Bugatti and still didn't make the official list at the top. 7 levels, and somewhere between level 1 and level 7, every single person watching this has already picked a side without even realizing it. So somewhere on that ladder, 7 levels deep, how far are you actually willing to climb before you find out where your build really sits?